I'm Peter Reinhardt. Welcome to Pizza Box of the Week with Scott Wiener. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. Scott is up in Brooklyn, but really our minds are all over the world because these pizza boxes have taken us everywhere. And so what do you have for us this week? Where are we going?
I love that you just said all over the world, because the box I have for you today is truly a geographically transcendent box. In fact, it's not just one box, it's two boxes. Peter, I've decided to show you a pair of boxes
All
that have
right.
something similar in common. Now, here we are, straight out of Brooklyn.
All right. Straight out of Brooklyn.
And then here we got north of Brooklyn.
Which could be anywhere, right?
The thing that these two boxes have in common is that they're both referencing Brooklyn, obviously, and they're both from Canada.
Ah.
So we've got two Canadian pizzerias who both want to reference Brooklyn and be like, yeah, okay, yeah, Brooklyn reference. And I love that it's like straight out of Brooklyn, north of Brooklyn. I love having the two all Brooklyn style here. So
Well, the Canadians have never been shy about taking things that are big in New York and making them their own, like they did with bagels. The Montreal style bagels are unique, but where did they get the idea for bagels from?
actually, I wonder that. Did they get, was it from New York or was it from Poland?
Well, it's hard to say if they kind of had their own original bakers that came over from Poland there, but we all associate bagels with Brooklyn and with New York. But the Montreal and Canadian style bagels are definitely distinct, as I'm guessing so are these pizzas.
Well, and I've never been to these places, but look, you got the Brooklyn Dodgers font. You got
yeah,
straight out
true.
of Brooklyn, like straight out of Compton, but straight out of Brooklyn.
There you go, yeah.
And then you get the north of Brooklyn, which Toronto is north of Brooklyn.
Toronto,
and
yeah.
It just makes me wonder, Peter. Obviously, I'm in Brooklyn. I think Brooklyn has good pizza. I understand referencing Brooklyn. When somebody makes a reference to Brooklyn, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. Well, we have a Brooklyn pizza here in Charlotte. And I think that, again, number one, it could be that the person may have moved from Brooklyn, down to this area, and they just want to do the pizza that they remember. But at the same time, I think that they're evoking this image that Brooklyn represents to the rest of the country of being the birthplace of a lot of really interesting kind of foods, Eastern European foods, Italian foods, ethnic foods. Brooklyn has its own cachet. So if you're claiming sort of the Brooklyn avatar, then then you better live up to it.
But what about Brooklyn pizza? You've eaten pizza in Brooklyn. You and I have eaten pizza in Brooklyn together. Do you have any favorite Brooklyn pizzerias?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, because I don't live up there and I don't have a chance to frequent them more than maybe I get to these places maybe once. I can't say that I have any one that I think, like, if I'm coming back to Brooklyn and I could only go to one, I'm not sure which one it would be. And I would call you and I'd say, who's the new kid on the block? Because, to me, they're all good and I want to experience as many different ones as possible. I've seen, of course, some of the ones that you've showcased on some other videos that you've made. Lucali, I've never been to Lucali. I used to love, it's not open anymore, in Park Slope, Franny's. Loved Franny's when they were around. But I mean, so those were all sort of more newer pizzerias. I mean, Lucali's traditional, but it's new. Some of the old school, like you've took me to a few places that have been around forever, doing great pizza, always have been. So you just can't go wrong. That's the thing you think about with Brooklyn, is that pretty much you can't go wrong. You're going to get great pizza wherever you go.
Yeah, and I think that's why places like this are referencing Brooklyn, because it's classic. It evokes an image. It's, even if your pizza is not exactly like what you might find in New York City or in Brooklyn specifically, it's image evoking. And I think that emotion is what's more powerful than anything else.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you pointed out, and I wouldn't have picked up on it, even though I should have, because I was around when Brooklyn Dodgers actually were in Brooklyn. That color scheme and that whole connection to the Brooklyn, the 1950s Brooklyn, basically.
Yeah, and it's the straight out of Compton logo, but with the Brooklyn Dodgers word Brooklyn. You gotta love it.
Amazing. Well, as you said, you're based in Brooklyn, but you're also now, and in this moment, we're also kind of mentally in Canada, in Toronto, or wherever those pizzerias are. It's Have you noticed in your travels that there are other cities that also kind of tag back to New York or to Brooklyn as sort of a way to establish their credibility, the
Well,
street
I
cred?
think in America, we have pizza boxes that will reference Italy. In Italy, they have pizza boxes that reference Naples. And then when you go throughout the rest of like parts of Europe and Canada, like North America, even South America, they'll reference New York. So it's this funny cycle.
Yeah, and this, I mean, there are certain places that become kind of the mother house areas for, as reference points. And then the goal is to either, I mean, I've been in New York where there's a place called Naples, right? So there's pizza, and a lot of the pizzerias in New York City are named after cities in Naples or regions, or they evoke back. I think that's the unique thing about pizza too, is that it really belongs to the world. And yet there are certain places that kind of get bragging rights for particular styles. And so when somebody's trying to do that style, if you want to get your local following to understand what your pizza's about, then it doesn't hurt to use the name of that area that it came from. I would think that people that open a place called Brooklyn style pizza or Brooklyn pizza, you would think that in addition to doing some, sort of New York slice style pizzas, that they would also have some Sicilian style. Because I think of, especially Brooklyn itself being sort of the mother house for Sicilian style square pizzas, thick pizzas, pan pizzas, and things like that.
Yep, absolutely. Well, you and I will have to go to Canada and check these places out on a pizza
We,
quest.
we got to get the bus. We get the Pizza Quest bus and get back on the road as soon as we can do it without having to wear masks everywhere.
Hey, I'm in. Count me in. I'll drive.
Beautiful. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you again next week with yet another pizza box of the week. And Scott, thanks for all the work you're doing out there, feeding frontline medical workers and people in need through Slice Out Hunger. Please, folks, if you're watching, check out the website and make some contributions and help keep that work going.
Thanks for having me, Peter.
Sure. Next week, another pizza box of the week with Scott.